And welcome back to Hannity. Now, the city of Milwaukee is on edge following 2 nights of destructive protests where agitators burned buildings, damaged police cars, pelted police with rocks and bottles and other things, resulting in injured officers and over a dozen arrests. Now, this comes after a 23-year-old man was shot and killed by a police officer, and that, of course, he was carrying a gun and has a long rap sheet. Now, the city's police chief said the suspect was shot after turning towards the officer with a gun in his hand while attempting to flee from a traffic stop. Here with reaction is Milwaukee County Sheriff, our friend David Clarke. Sheriff, how are you? I'm sorry about when I witnessed this in any city. I'm sorry to see that anywhere.
Thanks. This is my hometown, so it hurts a little more, but welcome to Milwaukee.
Yeah, it's great to be back. All right, let me play some of the tape. I mean, we've gone through this in great detail, some of the things that are said. Let's roll tape.
Still, his mama got fired for her love. Burning down don't help nothing. Don't burn it down. We need in our community. Take that suburb. Burn that down. We need our.
They not playing. Man, no white person come down Sherman. He white. Beat it. Hey, look. White boy. They beating up every white person. They beating up every white person. They jumping every white person. Who they beating up? Who they beating up? Who they chasing?
When the people start setting on fire, that's because they feel like they can't do anything else. That's what that means. It comes from helplessness, and they put us in office to help. We haven't been doing enough. Everybody is playing politics, and nobody is playing life. Our people are living and dying on the streets.
Sheriff, let me turn to you. 4 of your officers got hurt last night.
Rocks were flying not too long after the crowd started to move. I authorized tonight a higher use of force. We're going to do this reasonably and by the Constitution, but I've authorized the use of some non-lethal stuff to disperse the crowd if that happens again.
Let's talk a little bit about what you just heard there about getting the white person and picking out he's white. Let's get him. Let's beat his ass and all this nonsense.
Look, Saturday night the social order collapsed in Milwaukee. That leads to tribal behavior. That leads to the law of the jungle replacing the rule of law. And that kind of behavior, the quote we just heard, is part of that. It's shameful, I think, at the time. It's culturally dysfunctional black underclass behavior. We've had the growth of the underclass here in Milwaukee. Milwaukee could be a case study. This didn't happen overnight. Several decades, 3, 4, 5 decades of progressive liberal Democrat political rule here that has created the expansion of the welfare class, the expansion of state of dependency. We lead in these economic indicators. We lead in poverty rates, 6th poorest city in America. School failure in Milwaukee Public Schools, K-12. One of the worst performing in terms of math, reading scores, graduation rates, attendance rates. Black male unemployment in the city of Milwaukee, 32%. 70% of kids born out of wedlock. You have questionable lifestyle choices. Those are self-inflicted pathologies. Those are encouraged by the welfare state. This thing was created. Sean and I grew up in the city. It was never like this. This was always a working class, blue-collar middle class. The middle class has fled, and now what you have is the government.
Let's talk about the correlation here, because I think this is really important. And, you know, I give out economic statistics every day because under this president, not only did we double the debt, but we have 12 more million Americans on food stamps since Obama's been president, 8 million more in poverty, the lowest labor participation rate since the 70s, the worst recovery since the 40s. We have the lowest home ownership rate in 51 years. You have 1 in 5 American families, not a single member of that family is working. 1 in 6 American males, 18 to 34. Prime working age, are either incarcerated or they are out of work living in mommy and daddy's basement, and we pay more money per capita per student and 35th in terms of education in the industrialized world.
Well, you know as well as I do that these progressive Democrat urban policies create an underclass. All right, they create by design. This is by design for ultimately political power. Just always,
in other words,
keep
it's
that in
creating
mind.
dependency and failure, so they need to elect. They get the power by creating dependency, so people keep them in power.
It helps them maintain power. This is cruel. Look, the black community has been exploited ever since Lyndon Johnson's war on poverty. Okay, they marginalized the black man. Removed him, told him he was expendable, said Uncle Sam's going to be the dad, Uncle Sam is going to raise the kids. Uncle Sam is a horrible father, and we're seeing the results of that. We know that young men in the black community growing up without a father to shape their behavior, more times than not always, more times than not, grows up to be an unmanageable misfit that the police have to deal with in aggressive fashion like we saw Saturday night. So, you know, the alderman, the quote that we were listening to, he talks about oppression. And you know what the only remnant of oppression for black people is left in America? The Democrat Party.
Let me ask you this, because in this particular case, it just happened to be a black officer. And you have a guy with a rap sheet a mile long, a guy from heroin, cocaine, weapons, all of these charges in his past. He has a gun. 23 bullets apparently in the clip. I don't know how you get 23 in one
Extended clip.
Extended clip. Okay. So you got 23 bullets. I'm told, you know, the story they first came out, oh, they shot him in the back, just like Michael Brown. Turns out they didn't shoot him in the back. The officer shot him in the front, which means that gun was probably pointed at the officer.
Well, not only that, but the gun was stolen. And the investigation, you know, in time, we'll tell what happened. But here's the thing: it doesn't matter that the officer was black.
But wouldn't
really,
it have made
Black
a difference
Lives
in the
Matter?
mind? Would it have made a difference in the mind of the president, who rushed to judgment in Florida and Baltimore and Ferguson and Cambridge?
He's probably stumped on this one. Somehow they try to turn this into an issue about guns, the NRA, and gun control. None of that is here, so he keeps his mouth shut. But look, there's a way out of this, but we're going to have to continue to push back. It's what I've been doing with your platform, and I appreciate that, to push back against these destructive, progressive policies that have hit the black community like a nuclear
All right, last
blast.
question. Now there's a 58% increase since Obama's been president of black Americans on food stamps, a 20% increase in black Americans not participating in the labor force. So Obama's liberalism has failed. America's first black president has not helped black America. But yet 90%, if you read the polls, of black Americans keep voting Democratic. Why?
Well, it's that exploitation, okay? They use they set this thing up, and then they use this boogeyman, this boogeyman of racism. You know how this works. At election time, they come in, happens in Milwaukee, right?
Race card is played every election.
If you vote Republican, they're going to take your food assistance or your rent assistance away, your heat assistance away.
Kill
the
Granny.
People who have, and the people who can't drill down into some of this stuff to figure out for themselves, that are susceptible to the propaganda, that's a scary thought. I kind of get that. But that's why we need a plurality of voices in this community. I provide it with the help of talk radio here. And we just need a plurality of voice. And you have to keep, you know how this works. You have to
keep
control the narrative, keep beating the narrative over and over and over again. Over time, this community, the black community, my community, they're going to open their eyes. And when they do, I'll tell you what, they're not going to like what they see.
Sheriff, your city's in our press. Really mean that. You're going to be here tomorrow night with Mr. Trump, and at our town hall, Governor Walker will be here. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
I'll be here.
All right. Thank you, Sheriff. Appreciate it. And coming up, we have more reaction to the violent protests erupting right here in the city of Milwaukee. Our panel weighs in, and also later tonight.
Anyone who cannot condemn the hatred, oppression, and violence of radical Islam lacks the moral clarity to serve as our president.
A big speech by Donald Trump today laying out his plan to destroy ISIS, defeat radical Islam. Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North will weigh in. That's coming up later as we continue tonight from Milwaukee.